Now, let me ask you.
Yeah.
Do you have the songs? Do you have the new album?
I've heard the new album beginning to end. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I was very excited to hear it.
I'm in love with it.
Yeah.
I think it's the best album we've ever done.
I agree, honestly, hands down. I think it's from beginning to end. It's probably the most consistent, and just it sounds incredible.
Yeah. I can't believe it. I'm completely blown away with this album. I mean, it's unfortunate that it'll probably do better in Europe than it does here because it's a European record company,
right?
And so it's only a distribution deal up here in North America,
right?
But it's in a way that's such a shame because, I think, like I said, I think it's the best damn album we ever made.
I think. For me, it's funny because I was speaking with one of our other programmers here, and I was telling him that the new album was coming out before the video had been released or anything. I was like, Coney Hatch have a new record coming out, and one of the other programmers was like, wow, I actually just listened to the first 3 albums the other day, and I was amazed how heavy they were because the only thing that I knew was Monkey Bars, which is probably about 3/4 of Thunder Bay. They know Monkey Bars from classic rock radio.
Sure.
But listening to the new album, I'm so glad that I got to hear that on its own without having the sort of, oh yeah, those are the Monkey Bars guys kind of bias.
Right.
I mean, I had heard the music before, but hearing this album, having been removed from classic rock radio for a while, hearing this album, it's like a fresh, brand new album. I mean, obviously it's a little bit more mature sounding than the first record.
Sure.
For 35 years later, it probably should sound a little bit more mature. But
yeah, well, when we inked this deal with Frontier Records, what they said was, we want a Coney Hatch album. We don't want the Foo Fighters. We don't want an experimental album. We're into the classic rock thing. This is what we do. This is what we promote. This is what we want from you. Mm-hmm. And we were like, okay, well, Coney Hatch albums we can do. We're like, please don't ask us to do a Foo Fighters album because we can't do that, right? But a Coney Hatch album we can do, and yeah, I mean, that's how it turned out. It sounds like it sounds to me anyway, like if you did, if you did listen to the first album and then the second album, and if you just kind of discard the third album because it's quite a bit different. Mm-hmm. It's a lot more polished. It's without me. Not that makes the huge difference here, but it's just it's a different album than the first two. But for me, it's like 1, 2, 4, right? 30 years removed,
right?
But still, it's almost like a continuation, and it's always been like that for the four of us. Whenever we get into a room together, it's just all the old stuff comes back, all the old jokes. Everybody just falls back into their old characters, kind of thing, and off we go. Right. So, it was, to that end, it was easy. There was a lot of difficult parts to making the album because you got 4 guys that, now live 4 very different lives, than we did back then. Like when we made albums in the old days, we were a full-time touring band, and we saw each other almost every day, right? Whereas now it's everybody lives in different cities and towns and everything else, and trying to get us together is hard, and let alone the writing process and everything else, eh? So I mean, it took over a year to record the album,
right?
And not that it took like every day in the studio a year. We're not Def Leppard here. It's just that it took that span of time to get us in the studio at the same time.
Right.
But I am so happy with the album. I think it just sounds incredible. Yeah, and it. You're right that it's from beginning to end. It's not like you listen to so many albums, again, especially from the 70s, 80s, probably even the 90s, where there's like one great song, or maybe 2 great songs and then a bunch of filler stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think this album's like that.
Not at all.
I like listening to it. Like how many albums you put on, you listen to that one song and then you just take it off and go to the next album, right?
Yeah.
I can literally put this thing on and go right from beginning to end, and I'm happy with it. I never even used to listen to the old Coney Hatch albums, just because I could, again, the old way of recording and everything else, I could hear the mistakes,
Right.
And not that they're mistakes, but the ups and downs and the everybody moves together. It's fine, but it's a different way of recording, right?
Right.
Whereas now, with everything being digital and click tracks and all this other stuff, it's still a band feel to it, but it's just it's easier to listen to, and it's more cohesive, and it's just I'm just in love with the album. I think it's a good piece of work for us.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of touched on it. How did the writing process happen for? I actually want to talk about how the whole album, the process of putting the album, of it actually happening started as well. But how did the writing process happen? Because again, you guys were in different cities, you were different lifestyles at this point.
Right. Yeah, you know what? It actually started with us sitting down and listening to a bunch of old stuff that we had either recorded or at least, maybe not put as far onto an album or anything to that extent, but had jammed out for other albums. So in other words, there was stuff that was, again, 30 years old, and Carl had kept a lot of this stuff, and so we kind of started with that, and we listened to all this stuff, and we're going through it and like, wow, hey, I remember that, and even worse, I don't remember that, and yet there we were 30 years ago recording all these ideas, and some of them were just ideas, some of them literally had been brought all the way to almost complete songs. 1 or 2 of them literally were complete songs, as a matter of fact, Connected is one of those songs. It's a song that it used to be called I'm Lazy, and it got as far as getting into pre-production for the first album with Kim Mitchell.
Oh, wow.
Right? And we got in, and it originally was a different tempo, a different feel, and we worked it and did all this other stuff to it and turned it into Connected.
Wow.
So it's a different song now, but it's from 30 years ago, at least the beginnings of it. Right. So we started with that. As far as the first song, it was literally, it was just jamming out and getting something down, and just ideas that people brought to the table, and we ran with it. So at the end of the day, I would say that a portion of the album is old ideas that were just reworked. Mm-hmm. And then there's a lot of new stuff. Carl's done a bunch of solo albums. Andy had done a bunch of solo albums. Actually has a what's our Canadian awards?
Juno.
A Juno, has a Juno for most promising male vocal back in 80 something.
Yeah.
Right. So he has a handful of solo projects, and so there was a bunch of stuff that they had left over from that as well. So mm-hmm. Everything ends up getting Coneyized,
of course,
right?
Yeah.
Things change and things get put to it, and that's how it turns into a Coney song, of course, and that's how, again, we can say that it kind of sounds like it's a progression from the other albums, right?
Right.
That's kind of where it all came from. Some of the stuff was really old and just retooled, and some of it was newer ideas, and that was how we started it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I read a story, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I read a story that the impetus for you guys getting back together and starting to write and work on a new album and touring and stuff all came from a car accident.
Yeah. Carl Dixon, who is the Coney Hatch has two lead singers. So Carl Dixon is our guitarist lead singer, and excuse me, he has played with a bunch of Canadian bands that I'm sure your listeners would know. April Wine and the Guess Who. He would do the Burton Cummings part in the Guess Who down in the States. They can't get away with doing that up here in Canada, but because us Canadians would go, hey, wait a minute. But down in the States, they just want to hear the hits. Anyway, his daughter is an actress, and she was in Australia doing a TV show called The Saddle Club. And she's a young teenage girl. She was at the time. And this is back in 2008.
Okay.
And so Lauren, that's Carl's daughter, and the mom, Betty, they were in Australia for whatever it was, 3-4 months doing the shooting for this TV show. And they invited Carl to fly to Australia to visit his family and to do some recording for the show. So he went to Australia and was coming home really late one night from the recording studio, and he was, I guess, really tired and forgot that they drive on the other side of the road, and he got into a head-on car crash, and it almost killed him. As a matter of fact, I from the story I've heard, they actually thought he had died on the site, but they got him back to the hospital in Australia, and he was there for a really long time. I think they had him in a coma for quite a while, and because of brain swelling and all that stuff, and they had he lost one eye, and they had wanted to actually take 3 of his 4 limbs.
Oh, wow.
It was that bad. Like, he was in that rough a shape, and his wife basically stood up and said, that's not going to happen. This is a guy who makes his living as a performing musician. You can't take his limbs away from him, right?
Right.
So anyway, he was in Australia for a really, really long time, and at one point, so we were all getting updates,
right,
which is tough when you're in Canada and they're in Australia. But anyway, we were getting updates, and I know at one point Betty put the phone up to Carl's ear while he was in a coma, and Andy was talking to him and told him, listen, you got to wake up, because we're not done here. We got more music to make.
Right.
And not thinking that Carl would ever remember it, but supposedly when he came out of the coma, he remembered it quite well. And
wow.
So many months later, they got him back here to Canada, and I started talking to him on a fairly regular basis. And as he started getting stronger and it started to actually look like he would perform again, he and I were talking, and he had told me, like, I really want to put Coney back together again. I don't think we're done yet. I just have this long-term relationship with all you guys, and I want all our past problems to go water under the bridge, and I want to get up on stage at least one more time, kind of thing. And so that was in 2008 was the accident, and I believe the first time we played again was 2010. We did a show, an outdoor show in Hamilton, and it went really well, and it was like, okay, this is great. So we had really just planned on just leaving things the way they were, an old band from the 80s that would go out and do these festivals, because there's quite a circuit for that kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And which is great, and we had no intentions of recording a new album, and then in 2011 we got a chance to go to England, and we did the Firefest festival in Nottingham, and the response was unbelievable. I mean, it was just crazy, and we were really taken back by it, and we came home to Canada, and we're like, wow, that was great. Okay, see you guys next time. And then suddenly record offers started coming in. You know, we had 2 or 3 offers from different record labels throughout Europe, and which completely blew us away. We were stunned by it. But we were like, okay, well, you know, let's see what we can do with this. So after many months of negotiation, we finally signed with Frontier Records out of Italy.
Right.
And that's how we are to where we are today.
Wow.
You know? But yeah, all came from a car accident back in 2008.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story to, you know, the fact that Carl is with us after
Absolutely.
that, but the fact that not only is he with us, but he's back, he's playing guitar, you guys are back together, you've got a new album and you're touring. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's something, eh? I mean, Carl is, as I said earlier, he is the only guy in the band that still makes his living as a performing artist,
right?
Like full time, right?
Yeah.
The other 2 guys are in the business in other ways.
Right.
Steve is a studio musician and does a lot of TV work and movie scores and stuff like that. And Andy Curran, our bass player and our other lead singer, works for our old record company, Anthem Records.
Oh wow!
And is one of the guys that looks after Rush.
Right.
Yeah. While they're out on tour, eh? So, you know, they're still in the business, but in different ways, right?
Right.
So, you know, it's been a good thing having Andy kind of look after things, because he is still in the business, on the business side of it.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and so he was in our opinion the right person to produce the album.
Right.
And you know, he's been the guy that kind of looks after us all as far as you know, making the right choices. Just, you know, for me as a drummer who hadn't you know, been in the business for 30 years, I'm kind of a deer in the headlights with a lot of this new stuff that
Right.
goes on, right? So you know, it's been great having all 3 of them, you know, still in the business, but especially having Andy on the business side of it.
Has Andy gone out and got himself any tattoos?
Andy does have a couple of tattoos. He actually had a song called No Tattoos.
That's why it popped into my head to ask. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. He's got a couple. He keeps them a little bit better hidden than I do, but yeah, no, he's got some. And if for any of your listeners that have heard the song, it really is very true. Is he was scared to death of letting his mother see his tattoos.
Oh yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great.
So for yourself, being up here, being out of the scene, being out of the business, was it a bit of a shock for you getting back into drumming again a little bit more regularly and going out and doing some of these like the Hamilton show and the Fire Fest and stuff like that? You
know, again, I go back to, you know, I have done a little bit of playing.
Right.
You know, I do keep it up. You know, not to the same extent as when I'm playing with Coney, of course, but I mean, it was a shock in that I was just more surprised that, you know, I was going to get to play again.
Right.
You know, again, it was not anything I was really thinking about. You know, that being said, we'd always kind of kept a version of Coney Hatch going throughout the years.
Right.
You know, Carl and I actually would go out under Coney Hatch and do the Coney stuff,
right?
Even when Andy and Steve weren't available. But yeah, you know what? It's I do log on a lot of air miles. You know, going back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, I've gotten to know all the crews from Porter and WestJet. You know, flying back and forth from here to Toronto. But you know, it's fortunately, you know, air travel's a beautiful thing, and it's predictable, and you know, it's a great way to get around. So it's really not that big of a deal. You know, when we're doing Southern Ontario shows, obviously I have to tack on 2 days of travel on top of it. But other than that, you know, I love the fact that I get to be up here and away from it, because I was never a fan of the business in and of itself.
Right.
I love being on stage. I love playing in front of people. I enjoy the recording part of it even more now than before. But it's also nice to get to go do it. It's like going to band camp. And then coming home. Yeah. Right. And it's like, wow, that was fun. And then go back to my regular life, which that's just fine with me. So, yeah, no, I don't think being a full-time musician is in the cards for me anymore. I don't think, even if the situation presented itself, it's something I would really, want to look at. Right. But getting to do it more, and having a purpose for doing it now with the new album is fantastic.
It's awesome. Yeah. Very cool. Now, the album isn't officially out until the 24th. Is that? Oh, it came out today. Today's the 24th.
Today's the 24th.
So, yeah, the album is officially out as of today.
The album dropped today.
That's incredible.
Yeah. The single came out, I guess, a few weeks ago. Yeah. I think. And the album officially drops today, September 24th.
So definitely iTunesable, according to the Facebook page.
That's what I hear.
Yeah. Now, whether HMV in Thunder Bay has a copy or not is a good question.
What?
But
I got a copy yesterday.
Okay.
Like via Italy to Toronto up to me.
Right.
I got a couple of copies yesterday in the mail. So
nice.
It was like Christmas, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Opening presents, right?
Yeah.
So I got to see the album for the first time yesterday. It's funny, you go through all that, the artwork and the photo sessions for the pictures and all this stuff, and then it's always fun to kind of see it all put together, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure. The video shoot for the single, is that? Did you guys do videos for the first couple of albums? I'll be honest. I'm not sure whether I ever saw a Coney Hatch video.
Yeah. Way back in the, we were one of those, video killed the radio star kind of thing. Yeah. We were pretty close to that. We MTV and Much Music were brand new when we were starting to make a name for ourselves. So making videos and stuff was really new. And but if you go on YouTube, you can, and punch in Coney Hatch, you can find a bunch of these old. I mean, you'll see a bunch of the live stuff, but there are a bunch of videos from the early '80s, and they are something. Boy, it's
a bit of a pained look on your face as you're saying that.
Oh my God, it is just something to see some of these videos, and. Like I said, they were so new to it that I think the people that were making them, these professionals that were making the videos and charging our record company a ton of money for it, I think they were pretty new at it. And
absolutely,
like I said, if you want a great laugh, check out some of these old videos from '82 and '83. They're just wonderful to see. This time was a little different. We did this video shoot in Hamilton back in July, I guess. I think it was July. I think it was we were playing a show the next day in London, Ontario. So we did the video shoot in Hamilton in July. I want to say the 14th. I can't believe I have that kind of recall, but anyway, and a couple of guys came in and did their thing, and we basically spent a day of recording and filming and it was fun. It's again, it's fun to see. It's I get a laugh out of it. Not my normal drums. They literally found this old little drum kit that I think normally a kid would play on, and that's what we set up for me, and they put us in a circle, and we just sat there and did our thing for about 8 or 9 hours, and I think by the time we were done, I think I was ready to collapse, but it was fun.
with the talking about the CD and receiving the CD, I know that Frontiers traditionally hasn't done this, but has there been any talk at all, kind of side bar talk about possibly putting 4 out on vinyl with the big resurgence of vinyl?
It's actually something that Coney Hatch as an entity talked about doing.
Okay.
Don't think that Frontiers is actually interested per se, but we kind of talked about it and said that if there was enough interest in it, with it just being released today, there's obviously none of us have any idea how this is going to actually go.
Right.
We've been doing an awful lot of interviews all over the world, but obviously we have no idea how, not being able to tell the future, we don't know how it's going to be recepted. But,
right.
But at the end of the day, there was a discussion about it, and we would love to put it out on vinyl.
Yeah.
If it was up to me, I'd want to see if we could actually get it out on 8-track, but
I'm sure that could probably be arranged.
We came so close back when we released our first album. We kind of just missed that. It was kind of a 70s thing, but there had when the first Coney Hatch album came out, obviously vinyl was the big the way of doing it, and then cassettes were the other thing. But we were like, at the time, I think we missed getting to put it out on 8-track probably by about 6 months or a year or something like that. That kind of had fallen off, but I think that would have been awesome.
Well, there are probably places out there where you could get a specialized 8-track made for you.
Yeah, the great thing about 8-tracks were that it again was on tracks, so it would each track was only so long, and then it would go to the next. So sometimes songs would literally the volume would go down, and you'd hear a click, and then the volume would come back up. Yeah, right. And what a great way of having songs. It was just wonderful.
I think it was Black Sabbath, Paranoid. There was one song on there that for years, every time I was listening to it, it didn't matter where I was listening to it, I always heard it fade down and click in the middle, because that's how I first heard it. For like the first 7 years of my life, that's how I listened to it, was on 8-track. And then you hear it on a different medium and you're expecting it to fade out and hear that click.
That's funny you said that, because I remember the same thing. When I was in high school, I had a buddy, and he got an old police car, and at an auction, and he installed an 8-track into it, and it was the same thing. We'd go up into cottage country in southern Ontario, and all he had 5 or 6  8-tracks, and we'd play just the same 5 or 6 8-tracks over and over again, and same thing, right? You just get used to hearing the songs with the volume come down and then back up again, and then you're right. Later on, you hear the song on the radio, and you expect to have the same thing. I remember old Jethro Tull songs doing that for me, but
for sure.
Wow.
Where's the click?
Where's the click?
With finding all the stuff that Carl had, is there going to be a Coney Hatch unreleased rarities and B-sides box set coming out at some point, do you think?
Don't know. Obviously at this point we're just concentrating on Coney Hatch 4, but I suppose there could be a Coney Hatch 5 or something else, 4 and a half, or who knows. Back when we actually released a greatest hits album back in '91, and it was songs from the first 3 albums, and there was a couple. I think there's 2 songs on that album that were songs that were never released. Right. So it's not that we've never done it before, so I suppose it's always a possibility.
Could happen.
Sure. Anything could happen.
Well, Dave, thanks so much for taking the time to come in and chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure.